We chose smoking as our bad habit. One of the basic concepts of operant conditioning is the law of effect. This is the theory that tells us that if an action is followed by a pleasurable consequence, it will tend to be repeated. If an action is followed by an unpleasant consequence, it will tend not to be repeated. Examples of the law of effect in connection with our bad habit would be getting a pat on the shoulder for each time you smoke a cigarette. This would make it more likely for you to repeat the action of smoking. But getting negative comments every time you smoke a cigarette will make you more likely to not repeat the action of smoking. Another important part of operant conditioning is reinforcement. Reinforcement is a consequence that is in some way pleasurable to the organism. In connection with smoking, an example would be getting your nicotine fix when needed. The satisfaction will make it more likely that the smoking will be repeated. In operant conditioning, we distinguish between two types of reinforcers, namely primary and secondary. A primary reinforcer is something that fulfills a basic and physical need. A secondary reinforcer is getting reinforcing properties through associations with primary reinforcers. With smoking, a primary reinforcer could be a cigarette as it fulfills an addicted body's need for nicotine, whereas a secondary reinforcer could be money as it can be exchanged for cigarettes and therefore is associated with the satisfaction of a nicotine fix. When coming to the reinforcement itself, we also distinguish between two types. We have positive reinforcement, which is when the response is reinforced by the addition of a pleasurable consequence. Negative reinforcement is when the response is reinforced by the removal or escape from an unpleasant consequence. In relation to smoking, positive reinforcement could, for instance, be getting the pleasant feeling of coziness and unity when taking a smoke with all your friends, whereas negative reinforcement could be avoiding the withdrawal symptoms of not smoking. Other than reinforcement, we talk about punishment. Punishment is defined as any event or stimulus that, when following a response, will make the response less likely to be repeated. In correlation to our chosen bad habit, punishment by application could be getting physically hit by your parents for them finding out you're a smoker. And punishment by removal could be getting grounded by your parents for finding cigarettes in your pockets and you smelling of smoke. In order to quit smoking by operant conditioning, we could have 4 different elements to help the smoking to stop. The first one is through positive reinforcement. Here you could create a reinforcement of not smoking by rewarding yourself with a treat for every day of not smoking. Secondly, we have negative reinforcement, and here you could force yourself to run 5 kilometers for every time you smoke. The third thing is punishment by application. This would be pinching yourself very hard for every time you smoke. Lastly, you could punish yourself by removal by giving yourself a 1-week curfew for every time smoking.